Hey, it's the Fit Gear Hunter here with a review today for the Polar Vantage V2 versus the Garmin Fenix 6 line of watches. So I've reviewed the Polar Vantage V2 versus the 745, which is more of a realistic comparison, versus the 945, but these are the top of the lines, and I happen to have two different variants of the Fenix 6 line to be able to show sort of a comparison size and overall features. So if you find this video helpful at all, give it a thumbs up, and please consider subscribing for more, because there's going to be a lot of things to come. And this whole channel is dedicated to tracking and testing devices for the purpose of CrossFit and high-intensity interval training. So the review today is going to look at both of these devices for the purpose of CrossFit and high-intensity interval training. There's a number of reviews that are coming out in the upcoming weeks, so stay tuned for more. And when I look at these different watches, we're going to break it down in a few simple categories to sort of see how they perform in each different area. We'll look at the watch, we'll look at the app, we'll talk about each little area separately, and come back together for a summary review. So number one, the workout details are actually number one, the design and overall look and feel. Number two, the workout details. How does it feel like in a workout? How does the heart rate accuracy match up? Two, the workout analytics, Three, what are the workout analytics after? How does it analyze the exertion level that you put in, the recovery time needed, and the impact on your body? So the post-workout details, how much training load are you carrying? How does that help you evaluate how much intensity you're putting on your body, and if you need to take more time off, and how to schedule in between different workouts, how they handle that type of information, because all of that is purposeful and useful for CrossFit tracking and training. Next up, we would review wellness, just the sleep, the overall stress, the different ways that it tracks and benefits wellness coupled with daily life. So how does it feel just on a day-to-day basis? How do the functions work for supplying useful information that you can use over brief periods of time? Because you only work out typically 1 or 2 or 3 hours a day, but the rest of the time, how does the watch perform? And then last, just overall benefits and features, issues, or maybe just overall differences. So with that, let's get underway, and we will first look, and I apologize, I'm in my home office because, like I said in previous videos, I am overwhelmed at work, so I'm still working out every day at 6 a.m., but not able to go into the gym to film or do specific filming in the box, so doing it all here, so hope that's okay. Let's first look at a hands-on of the watches and the design and overall build. Okay, so we're just going to dive right in. So here's the primary differences you can see. So each of their backlight, these are set to 60%. This is full brightness. It's considerably brighter on the Garmin's than it is on the Polar. You can see, let's just first look at the Polar because the design is really nice. It's sleek. It's an aluminum body, 2 buttons on one side, 3 on the other. The Polar Precision Prime 2.0 heart rate sensor in the back, which has 10 diodes that flash. There it is. Red, orange, and green. You have a nice band. I mean, it's got a textured sort of feel to it, but the band itself is not, I wouldn't say easily swappable. You're not going to find an inexpensive version of it. You pull the pin, you can slide it out and detach it. But overall, it's lightweight, 52 grams versus 83 and I think 60 on the 6S. So 52 grams is incredibly light. It's got a 1.2-inch screen. So, plenty, decent amount of information. There's the full brightness. Your button presses control different aspects of it. We're not going to go into the full details of that. And then you have the traditional Fenix 6. It's got the full, 5 buttons, 3 on the left, 2 on the right. You have the heart rate sensor on the back. It's all stainless though. So this rim here, and I notice it, the rim is all stainless, and you can get a titanium version, which maybe is better, and all stainless back. So what happens is you have a sort of a top heavy, see how there's all these ridges? When you run, it just sort of, it feels like it's sort of pressing into your wrist bone. But one of the things that's really nice is these quick fit 22 millimeter release things. So you can just pop that off, and you can say, well, I'm going to go with the red band today. And it just pops right in. Now that's just like the quick release, which you can get on a lot of watches today, but not like the Polar Vantage V, which you can't get there. Comparing the two, so big difference in weight. This is 47 millimeters is rated, but it's really more like 46. And this is more like 48. So it feels different, the width of them. But this is a 1.3-inch screen, which gives it something like, 18%, something like that. I read somewhere, more landscape for the watch screen itself. So when you compare it to the 6S, now 6S is 42, so 46 to 42 in size. You're going to get the same button presses, but they both have the 1.2-inch screen. Now, I'm trying to decide if I'm going to go with the 6S as a daily driver but the problem with, I mean, this is sort of a side note. You probably shouldn't even waste your time, but this is like a hunk of change. I mean, this is like weight. This is full thickness. This just feels small. Look how tiny it is relative to the other. But anyway, so the 6S and then the 6X compares even further from it. But these are somewhat of a comparison, at least when it comes to the overall size of the screen and the information there. You know, all the same basic components, all the same basic specs for the two differences. Let's look quickly just at a brief overview of how the app experience works and then come back. So this is Garmin's landing page. You have your summary of information. You can change what information and data fields are here. So you have your last exercise at the top, the body battery, and you would have training status if I had gone on a run more recently. They would tell you whether you're improving or decreasing your overall training, and we'll look at that when we get into that section. And then on the polar side, you actually have a simple landing page. It talks about your activity for the day, last workout, whether your training load is productive for growth, nightly recharge, and your sleep score. And then you go into each of the data fields. This is sort of a detailed for the page, and you have your load. So this is the basic information for the Polar, and this is the basic information for the Garmin as far as what the app experience feels and looks. Okay, so obviously the design and build of the Vantage V2 is fantastic. It's a perfect balance. It's a light watch. It's a smooth watch. It's clean. It's easy. Doesn't feel, intrusive on the wrist. Coupled with the Garmin that's heavy. It's got, I think on the regular 6 or 6X, because you have a stainless steel bezel, it has a top heavy sort of feel to it. And so if you're running, I feel it pushing against the wrist bone, but I have a little bit smaller wrist. And then if you go to the 6S, the smaller variant, you will find it to be a little bit small feeling. I mean, obviously that's the whole point. The bands aren't really designed the same. It's not the same length of band, so it fits a smaller wrist, but it feels a little bit small. So overall, in design build, the award definitely goes to the Polar Vantage V2, but I do love on the Garmin side that you have these quick fit straps you can pop in. I like to change the straps. I mean, it does have interchangeable straps on the Vantage V2, but it's not really something where you're going to probably buy a lot, and you can't probably get $10 straps on eBay or on Amazon like you can with the Garmin Fenix line. So I like changing up the straps, so that's sort of a downplay there. So now let's talk about how they look in a workout, how they give you information after the workout, what it looks like on the app, and talk about how it analyzes all your workouts, how it sort of looks over across a period of time and helps you to know if you're training too hard or too little and what information we can gather. Okay, so look at the two watches. We're going to look at how they look in a workout, after workout, and what the training and details are there. So when you go into a workout, so with these, you can, you have your standard details, but you can also create your own workout there. I've created a CrossFit workout. You can set your amount of information that you can see. So again, you can change it and you can set updated detailed tabs, heart rate gauge at the top. That's actually really similar on the two, but you can see the big bright screen on this one. But on the Vantage V2, you have to actually go in and start it. So I just use the high intensity interval training. So what do they look like in a workout? So here you have it. So this is not really full brightness. There's full brightness, but the black is harder to read, but you still have 4 bits of information. You can increase the amount of information here. It just decreases the size. So I just used 4. You can go up to 6 on the number of data fields there. You can set what data fields are seen here in the app. I'll show you that in a second on the Polar, which is great. And on the Garmin, you can set it in the watch itself. And there's a laundry list. There's a lot more options for data fields to show on the Garmin. So that is a feature benefit there. So this is basically what you see in a workout. On the Polar, you basically have a few basic pages, the music controls, interval training, time, and some sort of spec details. If you wanted to add the FuelWise, I think FuelWise is in there, which is just an information for, tracking how much calories you burn if you need to take a goo pack if you're a marathon runner or something like that. So we don't have to start this one. We have to end this one, though. Unfortunately, you end it by holding it down. It's just going to make us delete it. So I apologize for the delay there. But no, we're not saving it. So what does it look like after a workout? When you go into the Garmin, we can see that by tracking the last workout. And we'll get there. Last activity, so that was just a bike ride, but I don't want to see that. Let's just take the workout from Friday. So CrossFit workout, so you can see all the stats in a summary form, or you can see the training effect. So that's the impact. So it tracks in a training effect your aerobic and your anaerobic impact plus your load. So your load is like what we're going to see as the cardio score here, but it also has a type of workout. So it gives you this label. It's called a load label. What type of workout you did. You can see just the overall impact. This is a score of 0 to 5. Anything basically 2.5 and higher is improving or is at least pushing you at the same level you should be. You can see your heart rate gauge in different ways. Laps, you don't want to delete it. So that's what you see in the workout here. On the Polar, you can go into, oh, there it was. Last session, says it was 2 days ago. There's the biking from today. So this is just the information you get. You just get sort of a simple summary. It is a touchscreen. Make sure I don't forget to say that. It's a touchscreen, so you can just scroll through. It works pretty well. But that cardio load, so a lot of these stats, I think it's useful information, but the cardio load, the impact, that's like the exertion score. That should be bigger. But either way, you can get your energy burned, you get your basic stats, but you don't have quite the layers of information that you do on the Garmin. So, what about after the workout to see recovery time and detailed information like that? The Garmin is fantastic for recovery time because it tracks the improved recovery time that's based on a multiple of different components. So it says I haven't run twice, so my training status is no status right now because you have to run for 5 minutes every week to be able to get it just to register a status. So here's what you see. You see load over time. You can see your load of each workout over the course of a week. You can get your load evaluation. So this is interesting that, highly aerobic in the middle, lowly aerobic, and anaerobic. The purple is anaerobic and the bottom is lowly aerobic because I don't do any lowly aerobic. I do mostly anaerobic. So you can get this information, but for me, just give me a score. Just tell me what the bottom line is. And then this is the recovery time. Recovering as expected. If this is a combination of your intensity of your last workout coupled with the quality of your sleep, coupled with your body battery, just how much stress you're under throughout the day. So that's what you can see as far as the training load platform. Just give me this. Actually the 245 has a more simplified version of this, which I actually like better. I wish I could turn off. If Garmin, if you're listening, make it so I can just turn off this load specificity. I just want a load score. Just give me a score. That's what the Garmin 245 does, simple score. So with this, you can see productive. So it's saying I'm just generally productive. My strain, my average intensity over the last 7 days, 58. My tolerance, my average intensity over the last 28 days. So it says, hey, you're above the norm. You can go in, you can see a little bit of information, but that's it. Can't get any more detail on the intensity, and it doesn't give you recovery time. You can't see any specifics other than looking at each individual workout. Whereas here on the Garmin, you can see all sorts of specifics when it goes down the line of a bunch of information. So that's what you see in post-workout. So let's talk about it face-to-face. Okay, so this is what a workout looks like and how it breaks down the information and the evaluation of the workout. So you have your heart rate graph at top. If I push any of these, it will actually turn on its side and go full landscape mode. Training effect. So that's the simple summary of the exertion or impact or how hard the workout was. Respiration rate, elevation, temperature. With the Garmin Fenix 6, it's got a bunch of sensors in it. So if you were doing a run, it would have 12 different data fields here. And then your heart rate zones, time in the heart rate zones. So simple summary of information. It actually lands you on this point, but this doesn't give me much information. So this was the workout from Friday, which had, unfortunately, 135 toes to bar. So this is the summary of information from the Polar. So you get the big red block. Now, it's not as bad with the CrossFit, but if you do any outdoor exercise that tracks other things other than this 5 pieces of information, this red block is bigger. You have your training load on the impact in the middle there. It's where it says high, medium, and it was a hard workout, and you have your heart rate zones and energy fuel used. So when I come in here after a workout, what do I look for? I just look for the average heart rate, the training load, cardio load score, and the time in the zones, the overall graph. So that's how they compare one versus the other and what information you might want to look at. But other than that, we want to look at how it evaluates the intensity of the workout. So I'll show you one thing. We'll come back to that. So this is my training status off of just the Fenix 6. So you track your load over time. It gives you a lot of details. The 745, 945, and the Fenix 6 series give you a lot of details for workouts. So aerobic or anaerobic, highly aerobic, low aerobic, your exercise load details. So that's where it assigns the name or type of load that you did, whether it was a base or whether it was tempo, that type of thing. And then your 7-day load over time. This is the simple meat and potatoes. You want to see 930 optimal. Even on the load page itself, if you go back, you don't have that load number on the load page. You have to dig in here and then go there to see your load over time and the range for optimal training. So you want to keep the white in between the green. So that's how it looks to track your load over time on a Garmin. And how does it look on the Polar system? We want to get out of the singular workout. It's here. So this is your training load over time. It says that same type of label right in the middle there under cardio load, productive. And you can see your accumulation of time throughout the week and your workouts here. But you want to click into the cardio load and you can see your history of how you've built up the quality of your, so your development. And one thing that's unique about this, you can see it like this, where you can see like a red bar is an intense workout, and that's the level of cardio load from that workout. The blue is going to be the strain, which is your 7-day average, or how much work you put in on average per day, how much cardio load you put your body under. And then the blue is, how much cardio load you put yourself under over the last 28 days on average. And it shows you, maintaining here, I was overproductive. So my strain was much higher. So my amount of work for the week, versus the 28-day average was a lot higher. See if it shows an injury one. But either way, the other benefit is that regardless of what Polar watch you use, and even if you track a chest strap to the Polar Flow app and the information comes over here, you just get a big long line and it leads you to this. So this is, turn it on its side, you have your full history. And if you have one watch versus another, it's just still tracking it. You can't do this on Garmin. It doesn't have this big, pretty visual to it. So your blue, the intensity, you can see the big red zone. So there was a huge day of 184 cardio load. And you see it over time. You can see the blue water line is how much your fitness is growing or shrinking. So you can see your fitness growing or shrinking over different periods of time. I really do like that. That is one of the things that's really great about the Polar. So that's how they track and show you. You can't see recovery time in either of these on the app itself. Can't see Garmin's recovery time on this. So we have to utilize the watch for that. So that is the workout details afterwards and analytics. Okay, so what do we see in the two watches? With workouts themselves, with the Garmin, you can obviously get more information. You get 6 data fields. They both have customization. And on the Polar side, you can edit the data fields on the app, which is great. It's a little bit simple for me. I like that versus having to go through fields of information on the data fields on the watch itself like Garmin does. But overall, having more data fields is better. 6 versus 4. So the Garmin has a better leans better that way, so it looks good in the watch. The Polar's got a negative because you have to have a black backdrop with the information, so it's not as easily visible or readable, and there are problems with the backlight, and the backlight's not as bright. The Garmin, you can fully gauge the whole backlight up and down and sideways to a full brightness. It comes in at about 2.5 times brighter at the max level than the Polar Vantage V2. So the visibility, because it's only a black backdrop on the Polar, is not as good as it is on the Garmin when you can do a white backdrop and you can see it a lot clearer that way. Polar has a situation called FuelWise, where if you're doing a long-term run, you can it'll tell you when you should re-engage some carbs or some water. But for us in the CrossFit and high-intensity interval training community, it's usually not as needed. You're not going to really go for a super intense high peak intervals for longer than 45 minutes in most cases, unless you're doing a longer workout. But in general, you're not going to be stopping to fuel up. So that's not of purpose for us in the CrossFit community. So those are the basic backgrounds for in the workout itself. What about after the workout and the workout analytics? Obviously, Polar has a very simple score. You get the cardio load score. So bam, like what the intensity was relative to past workouts, or just, and that flows into your load. But Garmin has a lot of specifics when it comes to your aerobic impact and your anaerobic impact, which to me, I like Garmin's score better because it breaks it down in those two main fields. Behind that, though, the Garmin, specifically on the 745, 945, and the Fenix 6 line, gives you too much information when it comes to load tracking, because it'll say you did this load type, it'll say you did this type of workout, or you trained in high intensity, highly aerobic or lowly aerobic. I don't need all that information. Most of us in CrossFit and high intensity interval training, we're just wanting just the basic score. Just give us the score. So on one hand, definitely Garmin takes the cake when it's aerobic versus anaerobic. You can see a score. It's a pretty clear thing. On the other hand, Polar just keeps it a little bit simple, which is beneficial for some people. But let's talk about, how you see the information. So after the workout on the app itself, Garmin has it all really well laid out. You have different categories of information. Polar just has big red blocks, which I don't like. Now, when you're doing CrossFit, you're not getting a lot of data, so there's not like cadence and pace and all that type of stuff flowing into things, so there's not as much in the red. If you do a bike ride, you got this much red, like the whole screen is red, which to me is not helpful transmission of information. But that's the downside there. Garmin has a nice layout. So what about post-workout? So you have the analytics from the workout itself, but what about just in general for your training? And that's where they come a little bit head-to-head. So they both have a training load tracking. So how much volume and intensity of that volume. So a lot of things like the Apple Watch, get out of here, and Fitbit, get out of here. They don't track intensity of workouts. They just track like volume of time. So you work out 3 hours at a super casual pace. Is that good for your body versus 30 minutes at an intense pace? So these watches will track the training load and the impact, and they'll sort of assess if you're overdoing it or underdoing it based on your history and your amount of workouts up to that time. So it helps you see, okay, you're sort of backing off, buddy, so your fitness is going to go down. You're intensifying, so it goes up. So those things are great. Polar does it in the most simple and clear format possible. So they take your 7-day intensity and your 28-day intensity and say, well, is it more or is it less? So if your 7-day average is more than your 28-day average, then you're pushing it harder. If it's less, then you're pushing it less and you're detraining or you're decreasing or you're just maintaining, one of those things. So that's very simple. I'm actually going to do a whole video comparing the Polar training load and the Garmin training load and the comparison of having used these watches for a long period of time at a separate time. But for now, that's the simple summary of the Polar. Obviously, we can see it in the Garmin. There's a lot of layers. You have to dig in. At the end of the day, they're both going to give you useful information. And I think they're both going to give you the same useful information. Polar just is a little bit clearer. And Garmin has a problem. And this is not going to affect most of you because you're going to buy one watch and wear it for a long period of time. But Garmin doesn't transmit or translate the training load tracking over time history to a new watch. So whenever you get a new watch, it just starts from like 0, and it sort of takes into account where you ended with the last watch. But I want to be able to see a long-term graph like that pretty display in the Polar. Another big thing with Garmin, though, that we haven't talked about is the projection of recovery time. Garmin is one of the only ones in the industry right now that takes into account, Whoop does it, but Whoop is so limited in connecting to chest straps and heart rate accuracy on the wrist. I don't take that into account, but Garmin will give you improved recovery time, which is the intensity of the workout, how much you need to recover from the intensity of that workout based on your history, your stress throughout the day, which they assess through body battery, and your sleep quality at night. It is genius. It is great. There's been times where I got poor sleep. I hadn't been working out and just said, well, don't work out now. It clocked up my recovery time from 0 and added hours. And then there's been times where I worked out intensely. I had a recovery time listed, and then after a period of time, I had such a relaxing day, it said, you've cut your recovery time down because you've had low stress and you had good quality sleep. So those things are where the industry should be, and Garmin is the only one that does it. Polar has nothing. I might do a separate video on how you can actually make it appear, but in general, out of the box, using the watch, it does not have recovery time in it. So looking at those things, let's transition now to see how these may benefit you in wellness and in daily life. Okay, so looking at the wellness aspects and then the daily life aspects together, the main thing with the Garmin that's unique to Garmin is you can scroll down and you can measure your body battery. So it shows, so I'm pretty depleted because I was a lot of bad sleep. And so that's what shows your stress throughout the day. You can see it across a graph, and the stress correlates to how much energy reserves you've built up. So it's tracking this over time, your heart rate variability, and it's assessing how much energy you have based on how much sleep you got, based on how your intensity workout was and the stressful day it was. So this is super useful. It's heart rate variability all the time. And then the sleep tracking is only on the Fenix 6, but it's their improved sleep score, improved sleep analytics. So you get a summary there, but you get a very nice summary overview of how your sleep was the last night. So it's fair, score 73, 8 hours. You get your stages, and then you get the detailed breakdown of your stages, and you can see it in the backdrop. And you didn't get out of it, so it gives you a summary of feedback. So as far as wellness on the Polar Vantage V2, so you can go into your, this is going to give me a little bit of a different answer. So they combine it in two aspects. Your autonomic nervous system, so that's like the body battery, which we saw on the Garmin watch. I'm like 12% left in my internal reserves. Here, -10 just says that my internal reserves were not regenerated last night. So they're correlating the same and giving you the same information, but Polar only tracks it for 4 hours in the middle of the night, this autonomic nervous system recharge. So you have to keep turning the backlight on because the natural backlight is too dim. But it does give you a sleep score. So that sleep score, they have been lining up a lot more, but this sleep score says that it was a better night's sleep, and you can dive into any of this by touching. You can see all the stats, just like you can see the stats here for the sleep score. And then on the autonomic nervous system, you can touch into that, and you can see the heart rate variability differences versus the 28-day average, like you can see on the body battery on the Garmin. So they're very similar in tracking your sleep and your overall resources and things like that, but the Garmin or the Polar only does certain analytical aspects for a period of time at night. So daily life, when you're looking at the Garmin, it has widgets, and Polar has screen covers. So you can just sort of scroll through. I'm just pushing the button, or you can swipe through to see like tidbits of information. Garmin's got tidbits of information in two places. You've got your complications like on an Apple Watch, and then you scroll up and down to get your widgets. But Garmin's just got a whole lot more of them and a lot more detail. So on the weather app, you can see all sorts of details on the weather. Health stats, you can get all sorts of details there. I like this because you can see how much time is left before the sunlight goes down. Really nice compass experience. That's my VO2 max. The other compass. Music. Obviously, this has got music, a full capability music. You can download Spotify playlist. You can listen to your watch while you're on the go without having to take your phone. Notifications, last activity, Spotify, respiration out. Lots and lots of information in summary for daily life. And then here, so on the Polar, you just have the number of widgets that are on the screen. You can turn them on or turn them off. I have them all on. So this is like the summary of what you can see, this intensity of the week. Basic, no information backdrop, the amount of activity today, productive, that's your training load, last training session, nightly recharge, recommendation for workouts, that's the FitSpark, and then weather. So that's the limitation of what you can see. So again, a lot more expansive, a lot more detail, and you can see the edit button here. You can turn a lot of these widgets off, but you can also download a bunch of third-party widgets that gives you a lot more information, a lot more detail. So let's look at the app and then come back together for a finale. Okay, so looking at wellness and then daily life. The app stuff for wellness is going to be the main thing we talk about. The biggest thing I'm a big proponent of is the body battery. So let's not look at a recent day because my body battery, here's where it shows you like your heart rate variability drops in the night or it increases. I think it's high heart rate variability. That means you're recovering. It increases in the night, and so you recover, your body battery recovers, and then it decreases throughout a long day. Throughout workouts, you can see the workout, little bottom, little running man. So you can see your stress levels at all times, and you can see when you've been depleting yourself. Here, I didn't regenerate very much. Here, there's a sort of gap in time, and you see yourself wearing yourself down and then building it back up. So you can track your overall well-being this way. You can see how the day has affected you. And it's really, really helpful information. It actually, in my opinion, is high-level analytics. And then second with sleep. So sleep, you have your basic stages here. This flows through. I like the fact you can hit the movement button and see if you got up in the middle of the night, use the bathroom, or if it was just tracking your awakeness that you didn't get up. And then you can see your pulse ox throughout the night, which is great. That's not offered on the Vantage V2, and your respiration throughout the night, which is on the Vantage V2. But you have just a lot of useful information. For whatever reason, the advanced sleep analytics with Garmin's Fenix 6 are on the watch, but the score number is not on the app itself. So those are the two basic aspects of wellness. Obviously, you got breathing on the watch, things like that, but I'm not looking at that. So here is your summary for the day. But when it comes down to wellness, they basically just have the nightly recharge. So this is a combination of sleep quality and a score with the sleep, and then the autonomic nervous system recharge, which is somewhat like the body battery, where it shows you if you regenerated your internally or not. So you get a lot of really useful information. You can see the score in the middle left there, but a lot of comparisons with your 28-day moving average. You can see if you had a lot of deep sleep or less. I like that it gives you a summary of time and up at the top. And then you go into the autonomic nervous system recharge. So heart rate variability, I was way off the mark just because I slept terribly last night, but you can see it over the course of days. Here's what it might look like in a normal setting. So I'm still compromised because I did not get enough sleep. So I think I got 5 hours and 11 minutes of sleep. So it's saying your sleep is poor. Even though my autonomic nervous system was a plus 1.4, so it was positive, my sleep was so poor, it gave me a compromise. And it says at the bottom, you shouldn't train as much, or if you train, don't train 100%, that sort of thing. So it gives you information you can use, like we saw in the Garmin watch, that gives you information you can use on the recovery time itself. So that's how the two use and summarize wellness. And then when it comes just to daily life, you can see a lot of the basic information. So this is tracking floors and details. I like that you can turn these features on and off, whereas the summary of daily life on the Polar Flow app is this right here. I mean, you can see it in week blocks, but it just gives you, instead of a big red screen, you got a big blue screen. To me, I just don't like that as much. It gives you information, but to me, I can't separate the information out in my head because it's all just in one big summary form. But that's how it shows you your daily information throughout the day. The one thing I do like is the activity bar, but I like it on the watch better than on the face here. So that's how I use it in daily life. Let's come back together and talk. Okay, so what do we see? What do I like about these in the day-to-day experience? The body battery on Garmin is incredible. I mean, it's so useful. You can see when you're really worn down. You can see when you're high stress days and how it has an effect on you physiologically. You can see when a sickness is coming on, because you'll see your body battery not regenerate about 6 to 12 hours before you feel the intensity of the sickness come on. That is fantastic. That means that it's working. Polar, on the other hand, does your sleep recovery, so their nightly recharge. So there's two components of Polar's recharge, and we'll talk about them separately. So there's the sleep analysis that gives you a sleep score, and let's compare that to Garmin. Now, the Garmin Fenix 6 has the improved sleep quality, and it is awesome, and they are tracking the same. This was not said about Garmin before, but the sleep analytics of the Fenix 6 line only, because you can get a widget, gives you similar, it's like almost the same scores when compared to the Polar, and all the analytics are there built into the watch like they are on the Polar, but it is head-to-head sleep, they're the same. Polar adds a layer to it called the autonomic nervous system recharge, and they will take into account your beat-to-beat intervals, your heart rate variability, and your respiration through the night. Now, Garmin is tracking respiration through the night, and Garmin is tracking pulse ox, which the Polar Vantage V doesn't include. So there's some differences there, but overall, it gives you a simple summary in a 4-hour window. It doesn't track it all night, just tracks the 4 hours. So that is useful information because it's just a snapshot. A lot of times we don't want to go through a bunch of data. Just give us a snapshot. But the body battery and the sleep score off the Fenix 6 to me are just as good. So these are just the same. And I find the body battery, because it's a 24-hour heart rate variability tracking, to be better in the fact that Garmin includes pulse ox while you sleep. I find that to be better for just the overall wellness of things. So Polar doesn't do stress tracking or anything like that. And then daily life. Now, this is a big point difference between the two. The Polar Vantage V2, the backlight, when you do a wrist raise, is just a fraction of what it is with full backlight. So I'm going to say that again. So if you're looking to look at your watch throughout the day, you're not going to be able to see it as clearly at a fraction of the brightness as it normally is on a regular watch or on the full brightness when you push a button on the Polar. This, to me, makes me not able to read the information on the screen when I do a simple wrist raise gesture, and it makes the Polar Vantage V not functionally useful for me the 23 hours of the day that I'm not working out. So that's a big deal. I can never probably just go with the Polar Vantage V2 by itself. But I'm always wearing a lot of watches, so there's that problem there. But that's one problem. There's a second problem with daily life. The notifications don't transmit to the Polar Vantage V consistently. I swear I'm getting like half of the notifications. So, they're half times coming in. Sometimes it'll link up with it's like it's not connected to the phone, and all of a sudden it'll connect with the phone. I'll get a bunch of notifications at the same from 30 minutes ago that were on my phone. So that has to be fixed. That has to be changed, but it has been a variant. It's been a problem without all the recent watches from the Vantage M, the Vantage V Original, the Grit X, the Unite, the Ignite. There's something wrong with their software design with communication. So if you're somebody that I turn my phone off, any sounds, any buzzers, and I use my watch to let me know when something's come in, you will not have a great experience on the Polar Vantage V2. So in daily life, when it comes to reading the watch and getting your notifications, The Polar Vantage V2 has problems. Not only does it just not work as well, it has functional problems. Now, Garmin on the flip side for daily life is fantastic. You can adjust the brightness. Now, not every Garmin watch does this, but the Fenix 6 series, you go all the way down to 0 or all the way down to 10%, up to 100%. You got full range and at full brightness. So basically, at full brightness for the Garmin Fenix 6 is coming in about 67 lumens, and for the Polar Vantage V, it's coming in at 27 lumens. So it's more than twice as bright at full brightness. But again, you're not getting full brightness. You turn the wrist, you have to push the button. So daily life, they both have weather, they both have breathing things, they both have activity tracking. We have steps on the Garmin, and you have activity tracking, which is a combination of how much energy you burn in a workout plus your steps and how much you moved around on the Polar. I actually like the activity. Polar has the Fit Spark, which gives you workout recommendations, but for us in CrossFit and high-intensity interval training, maybe that's good for mobility. They'll give you a mobility workout, so you could do that off of the watch, but a lot of times we're not necessarily following a set schedule, and we wouldn't necessarily use the watch for that, so it's not as purposeful, not as useful. And that takes us just into the combination thing of just the extras, the differences, anything like that. There's some major differentiators in the Garmin Fenix 6. It has a full mapping category. Now with the Polar, you can only get directional things if you upload your map from a file through Commute and something like that. But for us in CrossFit, you can just see, you get a map anytime. You can just turn the map on and go look around what's around you, and it'll plot your course to go wherever you want to go. Now again, CrossFit, we don't usually run as much, or I don't usually like to run as much, but just the fact to have it, if you go on a hike, you can see where you are, you can see where the trails are going, you can see all of it. You can see elevation plots if you want to get that as well. Music. Now on the Polar, you can control, like if you're playing it off your phone and the headset, you can control the music. It'll go backwards and forwards, but Garmin's got it built in. It's got built-in music. It's got full capabilities to download Spotify playlists. So like Apple doesn't include that. Fitbit doesn't include that. At least I don't think they do, but a lot of the major vendors that have music on their phone or can link to Spotify, it's done through your phone. So you have to have your phone nearby. With Garmin, you can download all these playlists and it just stays with you on your watch. So you can listen to all your Spotify playlists that you have chosen to download onto the watch, and it stays there. It's fantastic. Obviously, the backlight issue, I have to keep going by it because I'm so tired of Polar not getting backlight right. Battery life. So in basic use, I'm getting about 9 days on the Fenix 6 versus 5 days on the Polar Vantage V2. So the battery life is somewhat different, almost twice as much on the Garmin Fenix 6. And then the customization. So you can customize all sorts of things. You have sunset, sunrise times. You can build in a little face for sunset, sunrise. You have a specialty compass. You have a compass on the Polar Vantage V2, but the compass is just better. Sport profiles. You have unique sport profiles on the Garmin Fenix 6. So you can track mountain biking, which will track the intensity of different parts of the mountain biking. You can do surfing, where you can track like intensity of your wave ride. You can do golf, where it tracks the distance to holes. You can download golf maps. You can download ski resorts. You can track, it just has specificity with the sports profiles. With the Polar, it's got a lot of sport profiles, but that only means you just get a little picture that's different and a title that's different, but it's not tracking, your pull rate and your strokes per minute on a Concept 2 rower like this. The Garmin Fenix 6 can link to a Concept 2 rower. So a lot of differences there. So what do I say in all? If you think about the differences, there are a lot of differences that make the Garmin Fenix 6 the end-all be-all for sports training. Now, there's something to be said for the simplicity and the beauty and the sleekness of the watch. For the Polar Vantage V2, I love their cardio load training, or I love their training load over time. I love that you can see those things. I mean, there's other tests. You can do some tests, like a leg test and a running test and a cycling test, and you can do an overall fitness test off of the watch. Those things aren't as useful, but I love some of the ways that they do treat and approach training and flows into the app and the information on the app. But in general, Garmin has all of that and a lot more. So they have maps and music and improved recovery time. That is just, top of the line for the things that are on the market today. The intensity of the workouts, the different layers you can see about the workouts, and a whole bunch of other data that I'm not even mentioning because you can access it deep in the trenches of the system. So that is the review for the Garmin Fenix 6 family versus the Polar Vantage V2. Please stay tuned to more Fit Gear Hunter. Thanks so much for watching.